are not able to provide them with.
Thank you. In the past, when this proposed policy was being heard at the committee level, during the hearings of the committee, one of the resource persons there invited by the committee said that being LGBT is a social disorder. What do you say about this?
Madam Speaker, I would like to tell my colleague from the Dignagat Islands that being LGBT is not a social disorder. Being LGBT is part of the human condition. We do not choose to be this way, believe me. If we had a choice, I guarantee you 100% there would be no LGBT members in our society. But the reality is that we are here, we are human beings, we are Filipinos, and therefore we have rights that have to be protected. And as lawmakers, I feel that it is our sacred duty to uphold the constitutional tenet of equality by approving this law, this bill.
Yeah, but in another committee hearing, in several times that this measure was being proposed, a resource speaker also said that the Constitution of the Philippines refers only to men and women and implies that LGBTs are not included. And yes, it is in the record of the hearings of the committees in Congress. Can the representative of the 1st District of Bataan, Madam Speaker, shed light on the definition of sex, gender, sexual orientation, and gender identity for the benefit of our colleagues and for the benefit of those who are listening who may be confused?
Okay, Madam Speaker, for the benefit of our colleagues, we are dealing here with two questions. The first question is about sexual orientation. To which sex are you attracted? If you're a man and you identify as a man and you're happy with your anatomy, but you are attracted to other men, then you are homosexual. If you are a woman, you're happy with your identity, and you are attracted to other women, then you are lesbian. That is the first question, sexual orientation. The second question is, how do you identify yourself? Are you a man or are you a woman? Sometimes in nature it happens that a person is born with the anatomy of a man, of a male, but has the psyche, the mind, and the heart of a woman, and vice versa. And these people are called transgendered people. And also, for the term bisexual, that belongs to the first question. If you are attracted to both sexes, then you are bisexual. But whether we are dealing with sexual orientation and gender identity, what I want to remind the members of this august body is that this is not something that we choose. And with regard to the earlier allusion to the Constitution, where there is only male and female who are recognized, I do not see any disparity. Even if we develop laws and policies in favor of protecting the LGBT members of our community, I don't see anything unconstitutional.
Lastly, Madam Speaker, will the anti-discrimination law be truly effective in eliminating discrimination in our country? What does the representative from the 1st District of Bataan say about this?
You know, Madam Speaker, will it be effective? The efficacy of a law is only as good as its implementation. But the first steps have to be taken. The mere fact that we are about to pass a bill that actually recognizes the phenomenon of LGBT is already a statement in itself, in the right direction, in the direction of equal rights for all. Secondly, the typification of certain behaviors as discriminatory acts, as something that are unacceptable, that is unacceptable and illegal, is already a statement to society that these behaviors are not only not to be tolerated, but these behaviors constitute illegal acts. So the question is, will it be effective? As I said, once passed, this will depend on the implementation. And of course, once this is passed, I think a clear message will be sent throughout society that it is not okay to discriminate against anyone.
Madam Speaker, I thank the lady from the 1st District of Bataan for answering my questions. But more importantly, I thank her for standing on this floor right now. Because of this, she has amplified the voices of Filipino LGBTs. She is truly an inspiration, not just for us who are fighting for the passage of this measure within the House of Representatives, but also for every lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Filipino, no matter who they are and what they come from. Her presence in this August chamber is proof that there are victories in our struggle. The LGBT community is asking for more rights. They are only asking for respect. And at this point, I join the lady from Bataan in her call, the time for the anti-discrimination law, a measure that simply seeks to protect the rights and dignity of human beings, is now. Sa pamamagitan po ng panawagan ito, may papakita po natin sa lahat, hindi lang sa Pilipinas at sa buong mundo, na lahat tayo ay pantay-pantay. Maraming salamat po, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Bagao. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we recognize the gentleman from the 4th District of Pangasinan, the Honorable Representative Christopher De Venecia,
Honorable Christopher De Venecia is
for his
recognized.
interpellation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the Honorable Lady from the 1st District of Bataan yield to some questions?
Madam Speaker, I would be willing.
Please proceed.
But first, allow me to congratulate my dear friend and colleague for delivering such a heartfelt, personal, human, and historic privilege speech. I am honored and humbled to have listened to your manifesto, the Philippines' first ever transgender Congresswoman, Geraldine Roman, a game changer and my fellow equality champion in this August chamber. My line of questioning is geared towards the state of our LGBT youth. To your knowledge, what is the extent of discrimination faced by our youths in our educational institutions?
Madam Speaker, it is very difficult to quantify the discrimination suffered by the youth in our educational system. But I have heard of incidences, several in fact, of youth who are not allowed to study in certain institutions simply on the basis of their sexual orientation and gender identity. I have also identified situations wherein these individuals are not allowed to enroll in schools because their parents happen to be lesbians or homosexuals.
And Madam Speaker, is this right?
Madam Speaker, beyond our religious and personal beliefs, I think we all believe that it is not all right to discriminate against individuals for circumstances that are beyond their control.
And Madam Speaker, are there any measures being undertaken by the present administration to address such problems, whether it be on the part of the DepEd or the CHED or any other significant institutions or agencies?
Madam Speaker, during the budget hearings with the CHED and the DepEd, I specifically asked the Secretary and the Assistant Secretaries if there was a clear-cut policy with regard the teaching of gender sensitivity courses, and the answer was no.
Madam Speaker, that is very unfortunate. Perhaps we can enjoin these agencies to be able to devise programs that will address this issue, because certainly a lot of youths are affected by this, and they will not be able to operate properly and soundly in schools if they have to go through this degree or type of discrimination. My third question would be, Madam Speaker, how does your proposed measure ensure that our LGBT youth will no longer have to experience discrimination in our educational institutions?
It is very clear, as I read during my speech, that in educational institutions, Madam Speaker, the acts that would constitute discriminatory acts are not to be allowed, whether in the admission or selection of students, whether the imposing of psychosocial tests to determine masculinity or femininity of students, whether requiring the students to sign a sort of affidavit or promissory note that they are not gay or lesbian and that they will not turn gay or lesbian. These are acts that will be punished according to this bill.
Could the Honorable Lady from the 1st District of Bataan reiterate what are these proposed punitive measures for such educational institutions who will not comply?
There are fines that range from 100,000 pesos to 500,000 pesos, Madam Speaker. And also, the judge and the court that will hear the case may impose community service or courses on gender sensitivity to the violators.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I certainly hope that this measure will be supported by our dear colleagues here in Congress. And perhaps as a final question or clarification, you mentioned earlier the lack of data with regards to, I suppose, crimes or injustices committed towards the LGBT. Time magazine wrote that if there is no data, it is as if the sector does not exist. What efforts can government or the private sector undertake with regards to collecting such data that can hopefully amplify and support and complement these proposed measures here in Congress?
Madam Speaker, I believe that the mere passage of this bill will already provide knowledge to all of our public servants and those in government up to the LGU units. It will provide information which acts actually constitute discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. And as such, once given this information, they will be able to adequately report these cases. I want to remind the gentleman from the 4th District of Pangasinan that the figures that I cited before are very low, precisely because people do not know which types of behaviors constitute discrimination. And therefore, if you do not know something, you cannot report it. So with the passage of this bill, I believe we can properly document and report cases of discrimination based on SOGI.
And perhaps, Madam Speaker, we can enjoin the guests in this August chamber as well as our dear colleagues to help us solicit this information so that we will be able to strengthen the efficacy and the potency of this proposed measure as spoken about by the Honorable Gentlewoman from 1st District of Bataan. So, Geraldine Roman, you are the personification of change. You are change personified. I'm very proud of you, and I join you in championing the Anti-Discrimination Bill here in the 17th Congress. Like she said, the time is ripe. The time is now. Let us all be hashtag equality champions, and let us all be hashtag partners for change. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Representative De Venecia. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, next to interpolate is the lady from the 5th District of Manila, the Honorable Representative Crystal Bagatsing.
Representative Bagatsing is recognized.
Madam Speaker, good afternoon. With the gentle lady from Bataan, is she willing to yield to some questions?
Madam Speaker, it would be an honor.
Please proceed.
Does the gentle lady, Madam Speaker, think or believe that it is unfair or just that HIV is often linked to homosexuality?
Madam Speaker, I do not believe in stereotypes or generalizing certain phenomenon or behaviors in society. The tragedy of HIV is not the exclusive property of the LGBT community. It is a problem that affects the entire society, regardless of one's sexual orientation and gender identity. So it is unfair to associate this tragedy solely with the LGBT community.
What about, Madam Speaker, what about those that think that it is very parallel to homosexuality? What would you suggest that we can do to educate those people?
We need figures, Madam Speaker, that will shed light on the phenomenon of HIV. The cases that involve whether homosexual or heterosexual couples or individuals are necessary. These facts and figures will speak for themselves. And I'm sure that once these figures are before us, we cannot make generalizations that are very much in the line of stereotyping and bias.
Okay. Madam Speaker, one more question. Would the gentle lady know if there are help centers or offices wherein those questioning their genders can call, something like a support system, if they are too embarrassed to talk to their family or friends about it?
Psychosocial counselors equipped with the proper skills and training to respond to the needs of individuals in LGBT-related problems like depression, anger, suicidal tendencies, and family relationship issues, Madam Speaker, are not readily available in our society. One would have to go to private practitioners, and because of economic restraints and financial restraints, these are not readily available in the grassroots level. In fact, if you go to our small barangays, remote barrios, the problem is hardly dealt with, and there are no professionals who actually attend to this type of problem.
I think I join your plight in helping educate people to be more sensitive to their words and actions, that words and actions have their consequences. So if we need to find a way to have a gender sensitivity class on a barangay level, maybe we can talk to the DepEd, Madam Speaker, about this. And that ends my line of questioning. I would like to inform the gentle lady from Bataan that I stand beside you, and congratulations on such a wonderful, privileged speech that came from the heart. We felt the honesty in that speech, and I also manifest my support in the Anti-Discrimination Bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, next to interpellate is the gentleman from the Akbayan party list, the Honorable Representative Tom Villarin.
Honorable Tom Villarin of Akbayan is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. If I may, Madam Speaker, make a short manifestation, and if the gentle lady from the 1st District of Bataan yield to some interpellations later.
I would be glad to answer these questions, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, every time an anti-discrimination bill is filed in Congress, Akbayan is there in the front lines. And every time an anti-discrimination bill fails to pass, Congress fails to recognize that the totality of a person's identity is more than just a person's biological parts. A law against discrimination is a law protecting human dignity and right to self-expression. Let me quote, Madam Speaker. We should all be outraged when people suffer discrimination, assault, or even murder simply because they are LGBTs. We should all speak out when someone is arrested and imprisoned of who they love or how they look. This is one of the great neglected human rights challenges of our times. We must right these wrongs. Those words, Madam Speaker, does not come from mine, but from the Secretary General of the United Nations after the attack in Orlando, Florida. Madam Speaker, some may oppose change. They may invoke culture, tradition, or religion to defend the status quo. Such arguments have been used to justify slavery, child marriage, rape in marriage, and female genital mutilation. I respect culture, tradition, and religion, but they can never justify the denial of basic rights. Now, let me go to my interpellation, Madam Speaker. Would the Honorable Lady from the 1st District of Bataan know of any specific laws or even our civil code for that matter that discriminates based on SOGI?
Madam Speaker, I only know of very few references to the phenomenon of sexual orientation and gender identity, and they are not directly aimed at the LGBT community. I know of a law, for example, which is the Social Workers Act, which only warns against discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. But this is aimed at social workers. It is not aimed at the LGBT community. I see a vacuum, Madam Speaker, of laws that will precisely and specifically protect the LGBT community.
Thank you for that response, Honorable Lady. But this representation believes that we must review our laws, our pertinent laws, especially our civil code, because for that matter, even in previous Congresses and legislations, we have found out that there are specific laws provisions that still have discriminatory provisions. And going forward, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, I came from a recent inter-ASEAN parliamentary forum on security sector reforms, meaning our security sector. Do you think that in the military and the security sector, do the rules apply to all with no biases on SOGI?
I believe, Madam Speaker, that we should follow the example of developed countries with regard to individuals serving in the military. In the United States, for example, there used to be a policy which is called don't ask, don't tell. But for me, that policy was sort of hypocritical in the sense that it refused to recognize the reality of the LGBT community. So what they have now in the United States is this. Any individual, whether homosexual or heterosexual or transgender or bisexual, can serve in the military and be open about it. They can express their gender identity with no problem, and they can also avail of the benefits that are afforded heterosexual individuals and that are afforded to spouses or partners of heterosexual couples. So I believe that there is room in our laws and also in the policies of the armed forces that will enable us to follow the example of developed countries like the United States and countries in the European Union with regard to individuals who want to serve in the military.
Thank you for that, Your Honor. And I think I also do support that the security sector reforms, security sector governance should include SOGI as inclusive of the policies that will be discussed in the security sector. Now, on my third point, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, how can men and women who are not members of the LGBT community benefit from this law? Your Honor.
Madam Speaker, as I said in my speech, society has so much to gain if we become an inclusive society. An inclusive society where all citizens are free to be who they are and to love whom they love. Because if you have happy citizens, they are productive citizens, and then also the economy will benefit and we will grow as a society.
Thank you, Your Honor, Madam Speaker. As a last note, Madam Speaker, and standing beside our esteemed colleague from Bataan, Akbayan is here at the front line and will always be here until an anti-discrimination law is passed to ensure that no Filipino will ever be treated less than how a Filipino should be treated before the eyes of the law, regardless of a person's sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. And for this, on a personal note, Madam Speaker, from a TNL, I am highly supportive and cognizant that a person's SOGI should not be a basis for discrimination. And with that, this representation congratulates the Honorable Jerry Roman and invite our colleagues in the 17th Congress as well as the Filipino people in the fight against discrimination and the fight for self-expression. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, next to interpolate is the lady from the Bagong Henerasyon Party List, the Honorable Representative B.H. Herrera.
Representative Herrera D is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you, I'd like to congratulate, of course, our gentle lady from the 1st District of Bataan. If the good lady from Bataan will yield to just one question.
Honorable Roman,
I would be glad, Madam Speaker.
please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, through you, there's this, I think, one school in Mindanao, I think Ateneo de Davao or Zamboanga, I'm not sure, that they put up one comfort room for either the male or the female and called it whichever. I would like to know the opinion of the gentle lady from Bataan. Is this an appropriate term or is this really necessary to push for the anti-discrimination that we want to push for in our country?
Madam Speaker, I have read the news about the Ateneo de Davao building gender-neutral bathrooms. I want to laud the Jesuits of the Ateneo de Davao for this inclusive measure that recognizes the phenomenon of LGBT. But I do not agree with the form. In the essence, I agree with the objective, but the form is rather politically incorrect. Whichever, we're talking about human beings. But I prefer to look beyond the form and look at the essence, because my message has always been we have to look at the heart and the essence of the things and the people that surround us.
Madam Chairman, I thank the gentle lady for that answer because that really puzzled me. Whichever, I wasn't comfortable with the term whichever. But this leads me to another question, which is it really important to have a third restroom? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Yes, Madam Speaker, having a third restroom is not obligatory. It is not even dealt with in this bill that we are trying to pass. But based on the example of many countries, developed countries, it would help. It would help. It is not necessary, but it would help. And I want to focus on the anti-discrimination bill we're trying to pass here, and it's not really dealt with in this bill.
Maraming salamat for that, Madam Speaker. That is all my questions for today. Thank you for clarifying that. And again, I congratulate the gentle lady from Bataan.
Thank you. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, before we recognize the next interpellator, we move to recognize some visitors in the gallery, the guests of Deputy Speaker Abu, Representative Lanete, and the House basketball team, and myself, namely the Philippine Ambassador to South Korea,
Please rise as your names are.
Honorable Raul S. Hernandez,
Welcome to the House of Representatives.
Court of Appeals Justice Edwin Sorongon, accompanied by Mr. Velasco, Ravales, Mr. Perez, Mr. Ang, Mr. Relova, Mr.
Please
Manalo, Mr. Legaspi, Mr. Nieto, Dr. Lacson, Mr. Salva.
Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, next to interpolate is a lady from the 3rd District of Nueva Ecija, the Honorable Rosana Ria Vergara.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. Will the Honorable Lady from Bataan be open for questions?
Madam Speaker, I would be willing to
Please
answer
proceed.
these questions.
Thank you for sharing your personal and touching memories of your late father. Since I spoke to you over a month ago and we discussed your first privilege speech, I eagerly awaited for this day, and I'm very happy to be present here to listen to it. I admire your conviction and determination to stand for the rights of a long neglected and often maligned sector of our society, the LGBTs. And I share your view that it is time that they are recognized, that you are recognized not because of your sexual orientation, but because you are Filipinos like all of us. This House bill that you propose addresses discrimination, harassment in the workplace, in educational settings, even in how criminals, alleged criminals, will be treated in police stations. However, it is silent on discrimination within the family. Usually, the first place a child with a different sexual orientation first experiences ridicule. My question, how do we deal with parents or guardians who mistreat, abuse their own children, family members because of the refusal to accept their children's sexual orientation? How do we reach out and help these minors?
Madam Speaker, in order to deal with discrimination within the family, I admit that this is not covered in this bill, but we are open to ideas in the committee hearings so that we can fine-tune and add additional situations that would constitute discrimination.
Thank you. It's my hope that you will include this provision in the House bill, which I will support, cognizant that discrimination is first experienced by children of LGBT orientation in the family. I believe in the personal nature of each representative's decision to enter public service, how within our individual callings, there is a particular responsibility that each of us must meet. We are each called uniquely for a purpose, an individual task that will mold us into the person God meant us to be. As elected legislators, we are tasked to reform our society through our attitudes and actions towards persons and events to be other-centered and Christ-centered. There is no doubt in my mind, Congressman Jerry, why you are here today, and our country is all the better for it. Thank you very much, and I support this House bill and all future House bills that will stand up for the rights of the LGBT community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, next to interpolate is the lady from the Kabataan Party List, the Honorable Representative Sara Elago.
Representative Elago is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may just make a manifestation, and if the lady from the 1st District of Bataan is willing to yield to a question from this representation.
Madam Speaker, I would be willing to answer.
Please proceed.
Nakikiisa ang kinatawan na ito mula sa kabataan sa pagtindig laban sa diskriminasyon dahil ang pagtindig laban sa diskriminasyon ay pagtindig para sa karapatang pantao at yan po ay dapat kinikilala natin para sa ating lahat ng kabataan at ng mamamayang Pilipino. You mentioned, Madam Chair, the lady from Bataan mentioned in her privileged speech that there are numerous incidents of hate crimes in our country. That there are about 100 reported incidents of these hate crimes. Now, the steady rise of these hate crimes, both in the Philippines and abroad, is a clarion call for us, for the youth and the people, to intensify the fight to stop the continuing and deepening culture of discrimination and hate in the country and in the world. In the Philippines, the absence of a law that explicitly deals with hate crimes is one of the reasons why the violent deaths or discriminatory acts against certain groups of people, including members of the LGBT community, are simply reported generically as murders or homicides without considering the perceived or actual hate or bias towards them because of their personal characteristics. Sa tingin ko po, isang inhustisya ang hindi kilalanin na itong krimen na ito, ang mga krimen na ito ay nagme-merit talaga ng dagdag na parusa. How do you think we can address this inadequacy in our law?
Before Honorable Roman can respond, I would like to remind, the chair would like to remind those in the gallery to refrain from clapping in view of the rules we have in the House of Representatives. Thank you.
We would, Madam Speaker, we would have to address the problem of by passing more bills that would actually make the aspect of, there is a legal term right now that I'm trying to recall, to make hate crimes based on SOGI as an aggravating circumstance. This is not yet included in our laws, and I suppose that an amendment in the corresponding law would be necessary to make hate crimes based on SOGI as an aggravating circumstances, meaning hindi lamang ganito kalaki ang ipapataw na kaparusahan, kundi lalakihan pa dahil ang naging dahilan ay ang diskriminasyon na nakabase sa sexual orientation at gender identity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask this question because this representation believes that the passage, apart from the passage of an anti-discrimination law, the passage of an anti-hate crime law will address this inadequacy and will serve the interest and welfare of the most vulnerable and marginalized sectors of our society, especially the LGBT community. That's all, Madam Chair. And
Madam
I would
Speaker.
like to congratulate again the lady from Bataan from standing up for gender rights, for human rights, for the youth and the Filipino people. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ilago. Majority Floor Leader, please refrain from clapping to those in the gallery. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, next to interpolate is a lady from the 1st District of Antipolo, the Honorable Representative Cristina Roa Puno.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to know if the gentle lady from the 1st District of Bataan would be willing to yield to a question.
Representative Roman, are you still willing to accept
Yes,
questions?
Madam Speaker. Very
Please
gladly.
proceed.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to take this discourse to an issue that is very much related to the issue of homosexuality. That is the argument of nature versus nurture. I've come across some readings that support the theory that there is an epigenetic link to homosexuality. In other words, there is a theory that there might be a gene that causes or that is related to homosexuality, which therefore leads or lends to the biological explanation of this condition. I would like to know if the lady from Bataan subscribes to this theory, and if so, if she thinks it has any pertinence to the anti-discriminatory bill that she has put forth in this Congress.
Madam Speaker, I share the observation and the opinion of the representative from Antipolo that there is a biological basis for the condition of LGBT, not only homosexuals but also transgenders. I would not like to explain to you because it's going to be lengthy, but what I have read so far is that, aside from the genetic theory, there is also a hormonal and also a developmental theory that refers to the development of a fetus, of an individual in the womb of his or her mother. The important point when we discuss whether or not it is genetic or if there is a biological basis is that once proved definitely that there is a biological basis, we cannot hold individuals from the LGBT community as morally accountable. If you are born this way, you have no choice but to behave this way and to express what your condition is. As I earlier said, if there were really a choice, I guarantee all of the members of this August chamber that no one will actually choose to be LGBT given the biases and the prejudices that exist in our present day society.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I would just like to also manifest my full support to the good Congresswoman from Bataan, to her cause, to everything she stands for, to her anti-discriminatory bill. But most importantly, I would like to express my full support in the person that she is, without labels. Geraldine Roman is a person worthy of praise and admiration. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we recognize the gentleman from the 1st District of Camarines Sur, the Honorable Representative Rolando Andaya Jr. for his interpellation.
Representative Andaya is recognized. Again, I would like to request all those in the gallery to please refrain from clapping during the interpellation.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Would the Congressman from Zambales, if I'm not mistaken, or Bataan,
Yes?
be willing to answer a few questions, Madam Speaker?
Yes, Madam Speaker, the Congresswoman from the 1st District of Bataan would be willing to answer the question.
That is a good point raised, Madam Speaker. See, you're very smart, Madam Speaker. I asked the Congressman, and she told me the Congresswoman. But in reality, Congresswoman is generic to both man and woman. But the point is, a lot of people are talking about the legal effects of your particular bill, Madam Speaker. Would she be addressed now as a Congresswoman or Congressman? But that aside, let me just say that I'm a friend of your father. I've worked with him, and I'm sure he's very proud of you at this point in time. You are your own person. I could feel his love for you when you described him a while ago, and that truly you are worthy of the Roman family name. First of all, let me ask, were you surprised when you were able to gather that many signatures?
Madam Speaker, to be honest, I was surprised because I was expecting more hesitance on the part of my colleagues. But it was a pleasant surprise and definitely a very welcome surprise to have garnered so much support from this Congress.
Yes, I noticed that, Madam Speaker. You were approaching each member with caution. You would be, in a way, you would be using your father's name, your good name of your father, to come near each congressman to convince them to sign it. But in reality, did not need to do that. We understood, or we knew what you were fighting for. But I saw the list a while ago of persons who actually signed the bill, and I'm quite surprised that kulang pa nga eh. Here I am, I signed for it, but I know a lot of my friends and colleagues here are members of the LGBT, have not yet signed it. Maybe you should go around more. From Region 5, we have a lot more members who are willing to sign that bill. No, kidding aside, that is true. That is true. When I was about to sign that petition, I actually was facing up to my own fears and biases. And I took the cue from you. If you were brave enough to fight for this, maybe I could be the same, that you could be an example for me. So I took the chance of signing it. I must confess that this bill has been languishing in Congress for about 17 years. And in the past, when I was approached with this same bill, I turned it down. But, as time goes by, a person matures, a person understands how the world works, and the people you live with, and the people you have to live with and work with. So I faced up to my biases and apprehensions. You also have to understand, we all come from different provinces, different backgrounds, different religions, different upbringing, different nature. But allow me to take this opportunity to ask you questions which are in the minds of a lot of our colleagues who are not quite as convinced at this point in time. For example, I'm still quite confused with the terms sexual orientation. What is the difference with sexual orientation with gender? Can you please, I think it will go a long way. A lot of people would like to ask this. Congressman Abaya would like to ask this, but he's too shy to ask. So let me ask it for him.
Madam Speaker, for the knowledge of our colleagues, and in particular Congressman Abaya, when we ask the question, to which sex are you attracted? That we are dealing with sexual orientation. So if you are a male and you are happy with your anatomy and you identify as a male but are sexually attracted to other men, then you are a homosexual. If you are a woman, you feel like a woman, you identify as a woman but are attracted to other women, then you are a lesbian. If you are attracted to both sexes, then you are bisexual. So these three categories actually belong under the umbrella of sexual orientation. Now, another group actually is gender identity. As I said, in nature is not perfect. Sometimes there are individuals who are born with a male anatomy, but their psyche, their heart, their minds, the way they think, the way they relate to other people, is that of the opposite sex, physical sex, I mean. Take my case. I was born with anatomy of a male, but as much as I wanted to fight against it, really my heart, my mind, my psyche was that of a female. And eventually, thank God, thanks to the support of my parents, thanks to medicine, modern medicine and science, I am who I am today. I am happily a woman, transgender woman. So those are two different spheres to
Yes,
speak of.
I asked that question because this bill is more for the legal acknowledgement of the LGBT, or is it more of a policy statement in which members of the LGBT should not suffer any
It's
discrimination?
basically both, Madam Speaker. It is a recognition of the condition of the LGBT, the phenomenon of the LGBT for the first time in our history, and at the same time is a declaration of policy and principle that it is not okay to discriminate against individuals on the basis of their sexual orientation and gender identity.
It does not go to the point of, shall we say, I'm a lawyer by practice. Forgive me for taking the argument a few steps further. See, I asked the question of orientation and gender. They seem to be interchangeable in the discussions I've heard. But in terms of, let's say, documents, sexual orientation has nothing to do with it. If you're a female, you're a female, regardless of your orientation. Or is there anything else which is sought by this particular bill?
This bill does not deal with gender recognition, which is basically the second sphere I was talking about, Madam Speaker. It deals with simply the cases of discrimination, and that's it.
Nothing to do with legalities. In other nations, what would be the practice? I'm sure that...
Legalities? Madam Speaker, I would like to find out from the gentleman from Camarines Sur what is referring to exactly.
You hear cases in different jurisdictions about same-sex marriages or changes in their gender. Would that be the ultimate goal of this particular bill? Eventually.
Madam Speaker, I would like to remind the gentleman from Camarines that this bill does not deal with same-sex marriage,
yes,
nor gender recognition.
Yes, I agree. But the point is, are we headed towards that particular? Not that I'm against it, Mr. Speaker. I'm just trying to learn what we have right now and what we're trying to do.
Madam Speaker, I would like to find out from the gentleman from Camarines if he's interested in my legislative agenda. I would gladly inform him outside this forum, because now we're talking about the Anti-Discrimination Bill on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity.
Yes. Forgive me for my ignorance. It's showing again, Madam Speaker, that's what I asked a while ago. The difference between orientation and gender. I get confused. I think that's where the problem lies, Madam Speaker, that we have to be educated some more on this matter. Here I am supporting this bill, but admittedly, through my own questioning, I have just exposed my ignorance on the matter. Maybe we could spend more time on this.
Madam Speaker, I would gladly and patiently explain to any colleague of mine here in Congress what the differences are between sexual orientation and gender identity, in the hope that with this information, we shall be able to dispel any kind of bias and prejudice. Because I believe that bias and prejudice is based on ignorance, and information and knowledge is the key out of this bias and prejudice.
Thank you very much, and I expect to be educated by the Congresswoman from Bataan. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, we move to suspend the proceedings for 1 minute.
Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, we move to refer the speech of the Honorable Geraldine Roman and the interpellations to the Committee on Rules for appropriate action.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, we move to call the roll of members. Oh, I'm sorry. Madam Speaker, we move to suspend the privilege hour. Actually terminated.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, we move to call the roll of members.
The Secretary General is directed to call the roll.
Roll call of members, honorable representatives. Abad. Abaya. Abayon. Abillanosa. Abu. Abueg. Acharon. Akop. Acosta. Acosta Alba. Adjong. Adbingula. Agaraw. Agabaw. Aglipay Bilyar. Akbar. Albano. Alcala. Alejano. Almario. Almonte. Alonte Nagiat. Alvarez Franz. Alvarez Mercedes. Alvarez Pantaleon. Amante. Amatong. Andaya. Angara Castillo. Antonino. Antonio. Aragones. Arbison. Arcillas. Arenas. Atienza. Aumentado. Bagaw. Bagaching. Bagilat. Banal. Barbers. Barsaga. Batawil. Batocabe. Bautista Bandigan. Belaro. Belmonte Feliciano. Belmonte Jose Christopher. Belmonte Ricardo. Benitez. Bernos. Bertiz. Biason. Billones. Biron. Bolilia. Bondok. Bordado. Bravo Anthony. Bravo Maria Vida. Brosas. Bulot Pigtang. Cagas. Calderon. Calixto Rubiano. Caminero. Campos. Kanama. Kari. Casilaw. Castelo. Castro Franz, Castro Ferdinil, Katamko, Cayetano, Celeste, Celeste, Serafica, Cerilles, Chavez, Chipeco, Co, Cuanco, Culliantes, Cortés, Cortuna, Cosalan, Crisólogo, Cuba, Cuaresma, Cueva, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, De Vera, Defensor, Del Mar, Del Rosario, De Los Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duabit, Durano, Di, Ilago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Eusebio, Ibardone, Fariñas, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Ferriol, Florendo, Flores, Fortun, García José, García Albano, Gary Richard, Gary Sharon, Gasataya, Gachalian, Heron, Guana Cristina, Gomart, Gomez, Gonzaga, González Alexandria, González Aurelio, González Fernando, Goriseta, Gullias, Hernández, Herrera D, Hofer, Alosos, Javier, Ko, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lagman, Lanete, Laugan, Lasatin, Liachon, Lee, Limkaichong, Lobrigat, Lopez Benur, Lopez Carlo, Lopez Manuel, Loyola, Macapagal-Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Manalo, Mangawang, Mangudadato Suarto, Mangudadato Sajid, Marcoleta, Marcos, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matugas, Miliana, Mending, Mercado, Mirasol, Montoro, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Carlo, Nolasco, Núñez Maleñaon, Waminal, Ocampo, Olivares, Ong Edwin, Ong Henry, Ortega Pablo, Ortega Vini, Pacquiao, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panganiban, Panotes, Papandayan, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Primicia Sagabas, Kimbo, Radasa, Ramirez Sato, Ramos, Relampagos, Revilla, Rawapuno, Robes, Rocamora, Rodriguez Isidro, Rodriguez Maximo, Roman, Romero, Romualdez, Romualdo, Roque Hari, Roque Rogelio, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sahali, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Salon, Sambar, Sandoval, Santos Recto, Sarmiento Cesar, Sarmiento Edgar, Sabiliano, Sema, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez, Si Alvarado, Tambunting, Tan Angelina, Tan Milagrosa, Tan Shirney, Tejada, Teves, Chanco, Ting, Tiño, Tolentino, Treñas, Tugna, Tupas, Turabi Nataman, Ti, Umali, Unabia, Ungab, Unico, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Uy Barreta, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Vilarde, Velasco, Velasco Catera, Veloso, Vergara, Villafuerte, Villanueva, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Villarin, Villago, Yap Arthur, Yap Melesio, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Mara Carmen, Zamora Ronaldo, Sarate, Subiri. Madam Speaker, the roll call shows that 261 members responded to the call.
With 261 members responding to the call, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with our rules governing inquiries in aid of legislation, I move that we refer the following resolutions to the appropriate committees. Number 1, House Resolution 117 to the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion is approved.
House Resolution 118 to the Committee on Revision of Laws. House Resolution 120 to the Committee on Cooperatives Development. House Resolution number 122 to the Committee on Higher and Technical Education. House Resolution 123 to the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs. House Resolution 124 to the Committee on Higher and Technical Education. House Resolution 130 to the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms. House Resolution 133 to the Committee on Government Enterprises and Privatization. House Resolution 135 to the Committee on Energy. House Resolution 136 to the Committee on Energy. House Resolution 141 to the Committee on National Defense and Security. House Resolution 165 to the Committee on Games and Amusements. House Resolution 172 to the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs. House Resolution 173 to the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries. House Resolution 177 to the Committee on Human Rights. House Resolution 179 to the Committee on Health. House Resolution 190 to the Committee on Dangerous Drugs. House Resolution 203 to the Committee on Government Enterprises Privatization. House Resolution 204 to the Committee on Health. House Resolution 206 to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture. House Resolution 207 to the Committee on Welfare of Children. House Resolution 209 to the Committee on Natural Resources. House Resolution 210 to the Committee on Human Rights. House Resolution 212 to the Committee on Energy. House Resolution 216 to the Committee on Natural Resources. House Resolution 217 to the Committee on Government Enterprises and Privatization. House Resolution 218 to the Committee on Housing and Urban Development. House Resolution 220 to the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs. House Resolution 221 to the Committee on Public Works and Highways. House Resolution 235 to the Committee on Justice. House Resolution 236 to the Committee on Women and Gender Equality. House Resolution 237 to the Committee on Legislative Franchises. House Resolution 239 to the Committee on Housing and Urban Development. House Resolution 240 to the Committee on Government Enterprises and Privatization. House Resolution 241 to the Committee on Justice. House Resolution 244 to the Committee on Health. House Resolution 247 to the Committee on Agriculture and Food. House Resolution 250 to the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs. House Resolution 252 to the Committee on Justice. House Resolution 253 to the Committee on Local Government. House Resolution 254 to the Committee on Information and Communications Technology. House Resolution 256 to the Committee on Cooperatives Development. House Resolution 258 to the Committee on Foreign Affairs. House Resolution 260 to the Committee on Trade and Industry. House Resolution 264 to the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs. House Resolution 266 to the Committee on Appropriations. House Resolution 267 to the Committee on Transportation. House Resolution 270 to the Committee on Foreign Affairs. House Resolution 273 to the Committee on Women and Gender Equality. House Resolution 275 to the Committee on Veterans Affairs and Welfare. House Resolution 280 to the Committee on Energy.
House Resolution 281 to the Committee on Transportation, House Resolution 282 to the Committee on Appropriations, House Resolution 289 to the Committee on Overseas Workers' Affairs, House Resolution 292 to the Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability, House Resolution 296 to the Committee on Higher and Technical Education, House Resolution 299 to the Committee on Human Rights, and House Resolution 304 to the Committee on National Defense and Security.
Are there any other objections? There being none, the motion is carried.
Madam Speaker, I move that we reconsider the referral of House Resolution number 61 to the committee.
What's the motion, Majority Floor Leader?
Madam Speaker, I move that we reconsider the referral of House Resolution number 61.
Are there any objections? There being none, the motion is carried.
Madam Speaker, I move that we refer House Resolution number 61 to the Committee on Rules.
Any objections? There being none, the motion is carried.
Madam Speaker, I move that we resume the privilege hour, and for this purpose, I move that we extend it for another hour,
Any
Madam
objections?
Speaker.
There being none, the privilege hour is resumed and extended.
Madam Speaker, the next to avail of the privilege hour is the gentleman from the 1st District of Parañaque City, the Honorable Eric Olivares. So moved, Madam Speaker.
Representative Eric Olivares is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker of the House, my fellow legislators, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant afternoon. I stand before you today in this august chamber, the first regular session of the 17th Congress of the Philippines.